with Jon Impemba and James Grande.
What is going on, everybody? Jon Impemba with James Grande. Welcome to the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS Playbook Show. We are here for Tuesday's 5-game main slate. James, my buddy, how we holding up? Got the weather system rolling through here shortly.
Yeah, currently getting hit as of like now. You may or may not hear my wife run in here and say, "Hey, we're in the middle of a tornado. Gotta probably get off the stream." And I will say, "Hey guys, I'm probably gonna get off the stream now." So, a lot of undecidedness to the future of this show, but here we are.
We'll have James relog in through his phone in the bathtub, waiting for everybody.
Boots on the ground. Boots on the ground. You'll hear my daughter screaming. My son will be dancing to Bluey, but I will log on to my phone and it will be a great time. If
so, at least for now, the two of us are here to talk about this 5-game NBA slate. It may be an abbreviated show. Of course, Playbook is already out and in the Discord for those of you who are tuning in. You can check all that out there. Big news of the day, obviously, this morning, last night, whatever came through for you all, Ja Morant out for the season. Obviously going to make some impacts here on the Memphis side of things. We're also waiting on news on Jaren Jackson Jr., who is questionable for tonight. So could be just like Desmond Bane and Marcus Smart and company here this evening in their matchup against Dallas. It looks like they will have Luka Doncic upgraded to probable after being questionable last night. So that matchup certainly one to watch for. We know Cade Cunningham's out for Detroit. They're double-digit home underdogs against Sacramento here today. We got the Lakers in the 10:30 slate, 2 hours after the 8:30 games kick off. So for 5 games, there's still plenty of things going on here.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like that late window we've loved in the past. It is like interesting that DraftKings and FanDuel have dropped it, and then suddenly today we're back to having it. And yesterday we were back to having it when it's 2 hours after. Today's game is actually interesting. Yesterday's Suns Clippers game was fun from like a basketball standpoint, but not from a DFS standpoint. Tonight's late night hammer is definitely interesting because you mentioned it is 2 hours after. It opened at 230.5, John. It's been bet up to 236.5. Lakers standing firm, 4.5 point favorites there. That's the second highest total of the day behind Sacramento, Detroit. And we don't know what the longevity of that game is going to be. If Sacramento or if Detroit can even stay competitive in any setting without Cade Cunningham. York is a 12.5 point spread. Even Memphis, Dallas. Memphis, I posted a little snippet of the of our first ownership run on Twitter today. 6 of the first 7 names had Memphis next to their name in terms of ownership, and that's kind of held firm throughout the day. They're still 9-point favorite or dogs on the road against the Dallas team that just beat Minnesota in Minnesota. So like, it's definitely an interesting slate. That late night game, despite it being 2 hours, is becoming more and more appealing to me personally. But it should be a fun slate, and it could get more interesting if someone like Jaren Jackson Jr. were to be ruled out, which again we don't know. We won't know. That game is unfortunately an hour and a half after the slate starts, so we may not know. But we're gonna take you through it and give you all the scenarios and if Jackson plays, if he doesn't, and everything in between.
Yeah, no shortage of value here on the main slate here tonight either. So like getting to Anthony Davis, who was my favorite spend up of the day, not too difficult to do if you look at the ownership we have over on site. A lot of people kind of feeling the same way, spending up for Anthony Davis here, and there's plenty of value sort of surrounding him with the Memphis guys. Killian Hayes is your highest projected play of the day. I am unsure how I feel about on that. I know he certainly had some moments where he's been good this year, and a lot of other moments where he hasn't been all that good. They certainly have the depth on that team at the guard position to just not go to Killian Hayes should he get off to a bad or slow start in this one. So certainly something to pay attention to there. Albert popping in also. Kevin Huerter reportedly working with the starters this morning, could be re-entering the starting lineup. I know that we hasn't been the best of years for Kevin Huerter. Certainly Last year was pretty good. Not so much this year, but could be back in that starting lineup tonight. I don't necessarily find myself getting to any Kevin Huerter here this evening, but he is another value play that's sort of entering the fray here, James.
I like. I hope he shoots the ball better than he has because the Kings desperately need him to.
Yeah.
His last game was a complete aberration, and he got 24 minutes because they were down 100 to the Pelicans again. So like even if he started a lot of the year and hadn't really done well anyway. So hope for him. I hope they get him on track because he shoots 34% from three. He's not going to be on that team for much longer or playing if he continues to shoot 34% from three. Because you know what he's there for, John?
Shooting threes.
Space the floor for them. And when you're shooting 34%, you're not exactly.
He's a name that has been floated out on the trade deadline talks. Obviously, trade deadline about a month away here in the NBA. So we'll see if he can get going and maybe find himself elsewhere at some point this season. Milwaukee could probably use him. Get a guy that replaced what they lost with Grayson Allen there.
I just tweeted it out. Like 20 minutes ago about Luke Kennard, who we're going to talk about. And maybe, I put the Magic and the Lakers. They're both bottom 5 in 3-point shooting this year. Yeah. Two teams that are desperate need of like anything spacing. So maybe Kevin Huerter can find his leggings in the Lakers in the bright lights of LA,
Yeah, anything is possible there. Let's get into the point guard position. Got Luka Doncic now. He is expected to play 11-5. De'Aaron Fox, $9,300. Jalen Brunson, $9,100. Edwards, $9K. If we kind of cut it off there, look at the top 4 price guards on tonight's slate. Do you find yourself having any interest in Luka Doncic here at $11,500?
Any interest? Yes. Significant interest? No. I feel like on a 5-game slate, we should have interest in Luka because he has as much upside as anybody else, right? Like it's just what it is kind of in the league. That's league wide, not just on the slate. But I don't think Kyrie is going to be as good as he has been every single night, especially peripherally, which I think that's really where it's hurt Luka, especially the last 2 nights where he hasn't even doubled. And this is a guy who's a walking fire-breathing triple-double machine. Right. So I definitely have interest. There's no problem getting to him either. Like if this is the slate you want to get to Luka, it's very easy. You're playing Memphis, you're playing Killian Hayes or Detroit in general, you're playing some value on the Toronto side, and then you're moving on. Like it's not hard. So it really just depends on your roster construction. I agree with the Anthony Davis part of the equation. Like I also think he's the best spend up on the slate. But if you wanted to get to Luka. The field is getting to Luka. I think that again is short slate. Like, what's my? You talk about a guy if he gives you 70 on a short slate, you're in a crappy spot. I would say.
It's only 4,700 to play them both, and there's plenty of guys that can get it done. So,
yep, you can comfortably build with both because both Davis and Luka are getting a lot of ownership.
Yeah.
And that's held firm kind of throughout the day. It's a good spot for Luka. He's going to get Marcus Smart. Obviously, Luka doesn't care about your matchups. Anyone's matchups. He's matchup proof. Given the size of a 6'6" point guard is just hard to guard. But yeah, if you want to get to Luka, I don't fault you for it. If you want to move down to the next tier of guys, I also don't fault you for it.
How do you rank Fox, Brunson, Edwards, and Kyrie here?
It's a tough one. Probably. I feel like Brunson is the safest option of the bunch. The only problem is the blowout, but he played 32 minutes in a blowout against Philly just 2 games ago, 42 fantasy points, and he's just given you 40 fantasy points every game since December 20th.
Sure.
So I would say Brunson's the safest of the bunch. In terms of upside, De'Aaron Fox, obviously has the matchup of this tier because who is stopping De'Aaron Fox? I mean,
Sure.
is it Killian Hayes, who I do suspect starts? It would be bad of Detroit to like, hey, Jaden, get out there and guard De'Aaron Fox tonight. Like that would be bad for him. So, I'll say Fox for. I'm not. I don't know. I want to hear your ranking. I'll say Fox for upside and Brunson for cash or in safety. But how would you rank them?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I have actually a Fox third because I don't know what happens in a blowout here. I would have Kyrie Irving second and Brunson first. I think that's how I'd break it.
Okay.
And then Edwards would be fourth for me just for the matchup. Slow, low scoring matchup there against Orlando.
Yep.
Again, I know we've talked about it. Like Kyrie was a little bit slow to the get go there, but then he hasn't been 53, 51, 60, right? So, I think that there's, this is what we know Kyrie Irving can be. He's only $8,800, so he's cheaper than the other ones. Double digit favorites here for Sacramento. And I don't know what Detroit's going to do here without Cade Cunningham. They could go down. This could be a 40-17 first quarter or something like that here, right? And it's over. So that's a little bit where my worries are with that one. So I'd have Fox third for me. Mid-tier, Simon, $7,700. Speaking guys that I think are the point guards on the team, Simon, Suggs, Smart, I guess would be like the next three for me.
Yeah, Smart's super popular, which is kind of expected, especially after his last two games and the minutes that he's played and the shot attempts he's taken the last two games has been all the way there. He's a really good play. It's just if they don't keep it close, like you're drawing dead because he'll play 28 minutes, and in that scenario, he's probably not putting up 43 to 50 fantasy points, and he's gonna be 40% owned. So, he's definitely locked and loaded in cash. There's definitely a case to be made to fade him in tournaments. I'm not. I'm just saying, like, there is a case to be fading him in tournaments. I do think the Lakers guys are a little bit interesting. Reeves only played 32 minutes after playing basically high 30s. And that's because they brought Russell back from that little injury and he played 31 minutes off the bench for them.
Yeah.
There's obviously a lot of turmoil with the Lakers rotation in general. And I'm not saying he looked great, but if he's going to play 31 minutes, took 14 shots, 26 fantasy points, I mean, they need something else. So this is the second highest game total on the board now. I'd be a little bit interested in Russell in tournaments and to your Simons and Suggs points, like, yeah, they're fine. Suggs was in foul trouble last game against Atlanta, but with their guard room being a little bit healthier, he only played 30 minutes, which seemingly Orlando's like where they want to keep him. And then Simons,
I think Simon's just too cheap for me at this moment.
I mean, if he makes shots, it's crazy.
He makes shots, sure, but he's going to also take a lot of shots.
Yes,
so,
yes.
Which is one of the reasons why I'm high on him. I understand it was an overtime game, played 45 minutes, but obviously that means the minutes cap is off. So, he was playing 38 minutes no matter what earlier this year before the injury. So I like Simons a lot to be my favorite of that group. Smart would be number two. The Lakers guys, like I have Reeves in the playbook. I don't have Russell. I worry they could also just eat into each other. One goes cold, the other one comes on the floor. Like I wouldn't know. I don't think there's a clear picture for me on which one is the guy to play there. I'm always a little bit more enamored with Reeves. I feel like, particularly given his skill set there. Value guys, there wasn't a ton. You have Ivy and Hayes obviously getting love here. Got some multi-positional eligibility you could throw some darts on, but no clear like cut one for me.
I mean, the field disagrees, so I guess that's the debate, right? 60%.
Yeah, I mean, it's just natural like plug and play, but we've seen Killian Hayes play minutes and not perform. So
Yeah, I'm just saying he is going to be 60% owned, which is,
Mhm.
I think, something that needs to be said. And he started the second half for Detroit last game. With Cade Cunningham and Isaiah Stewart off the floor, he 0.88 fantasy points per minute this year, which, you know, isn't great. It's not terrible. 0.88 is like if you're playing 30 minutes, if he goes for 0.88 fantasy points, he's exceeding value by quite a bit. So it's really about Detroit keeping it competitive or not, right? Because if
Yeah.
they don't, he's not playing 30 minutes. He's not even coming close to 30
Well,
minutes.
that's where I'm at. Again, I don't see Detroit being overly competitive here. So, you know, 0.88, like you said, if he plays 30 minutes, is like 26 fantasy points, would definitely pay off the price tag. You only need 22 fantasy points for 5x here. Um, he just I get it. Like the shot volume is just disgusting. And I understand that that's with Cade and Cade's not there, but like they're playing Burks more. If he gets off to a slow, like they could throw Sasser out there. Yeah, Dez has my whole opinion on this. Like
I mean, I'm there. I am with you.
I have
I'm
Hayes in the cheat sheet player pool grid, but he's not in the write up section for me because again, I will if I'm with all the other value on this slate at this price point, right? Like if Hayes goes for 40, then fine, I guess. Like, but I don't know. You could play. There's 10 guys at $4,500 on this slate that you could play.
I I would say for Killian Hayes, this is a perfect example of a player that if you're playing cash games, you just plug him and you move on because he's 4,500 and 70% of the field's going to play him. If you're playing tournaments, he's the perfect like case study to be like, you know what? This game isn't going to stay competitive. I'm going to take a stand and not play him
Sure.
because that's where you're getting your exposure in cash. Where again, like these ownerships are taken from large field tournament the largest
Mhm.
field tournament. So if you take that and then you think, okay, well, a cash game is obviously 1/10 the size of that tournament. So Killian Hayes' ownership is still going to be sky high in this cash game. There's a lot less people fading Killian Hayes. Like that sample is taking into account all the people that are fading
Sure.
Killian Hayes, obviously.
Sure.
Play him in cash. Like if you're playing cash games tonight, because he's going to be super highly owned. If you're playing tournaments, like there's obviously reason to play him if Detroit can keep it close. I mean, Sacramento against the spread on the road is 9-6. For what that's worth, they're about middle of the pack in the league. They're also 9-8 at home on the road overall,
Mhm.
or 8-7 rather on the road, coming off that another embarrassing loss. But it's just hard to envision Detroit without Kate because like how do they generate unless Bojan scores 50 actual? How do they generate enough points to
So
keep
Bojan,
scoring?
I have in the core play write up section. I think Bojan's probably the one guy from Detroit I would play today. Burks, I think, is obviously someone that we can talk about shooting guard. But I'm very skeptical on the Killian Hayes front.
Now I
I'm
think
also more okay like fading 60% chalk. Like
yeah, yeah.
I'm
Because
not too worried about that.
okay.
Again, like if he can be 60% owned, but there's so much other value that he has to have a monster day to like outpace. And we just got the Orlando lineup, right? Like Caleb Houston starting again. I mean, Caleb Houston's been somebody that's played big minutes the last couple of games. He's in a generally similar price point. Vince Williams is somebody that's in a generally similar price point. That have given you the same kind of production. Kennard, same price point, has given us the 20 plus fantasy points lately. So like there's a lot of guys. Chris Boucher, we'll talk about another one, same price point upside, right? So, if that many people are playing Killian Hayes, there are at least obvious pivots at that price to go elsewhere and hope they just outproduce Killian Hayes. Now I know given the ownership, a lot of people are just plugging all of those guys
Yeah,
too,
all of them are just playing all of them.
but we'll hit that mark when we get there. Shooting guard here, Anthony Edwards we talked about already. Kyrie we talked about. Desmond Bane's got some pretty decent numbers without John Morant on the floor this year. 30% usage rate with them off the floor versus 25% when John Morant is on the floor. It's like 1.28, I think it was, fantasy points per minute without Ja. It was 1.1 something with him on. So big boost with Bane. And that's not even counting that they may not be Jaren Jackson Jr. either on the floor tonight. And then it goes even up more. So, Desmond Bane's going to be a guy that's going to go out there. He's going to play a lot of minutes, win or lose. He's going to probably lead the team in shot attempts tonight. So I'm perfectly fine paying the $8,500 for Bane right here.
Yeah, really good eligibility, possibly without Jaren Jackson Jr., as you mentioned. Aldama is a good offensive player. They could be just like incredibly shorthanded tonight. Yeah. And then you're talking about Bane surrounded by Smart, who, for what it's worth, will shoot a lot of threes. He's made 12 in the last couple games. Kennard will start. He's a 43% career shooter from that range. Vince Williams spaces the floor, just stands in a corner. He hit 3 threes the other night. Like, it would be Bane surrounded by a bunch of shooters and Bismack. And that we've seen Bane play make a lot in those scenarios. So as well as look for his own shot.
Smart's a really good passer too.
He is.
So it could very well see both of those guys really facilitate the offense there. After that, again, some guys we've talked about with dual positional eligibility here. With Simons, Reeves. I didn't really have much interest in the Toronto guys here. I know the late night matchup is appealing, but feels like Quickly and Barrett to me are a little bit too expensive. Quickly for especially Barrett coming off of a ceiling game. Do you have any takes here on Quickly or Barrett?
It's a pretty good paced environment, which is why I think the total has risen. When you look at the last 15 games, Lakers are 8th in pace. The Raptors are 14th in pace. So two of the top half of the league, Lakers are league average defensively and over that span as well. I'm not chasing Barrett. If you end up on Barrett, I wouldn't say it's a terrible thing, but 6,500 is definitely, a little too pricey. If I were to play either, I would play Quickly because again, he was having a really, really good game. He just ran into what happened with RJ Barrett, and he ran into not playing the fourth quarter. He had 32 fantasy points in 26 minutes, would have had a double-double. Who knows how many rebounds he would have gotten. But 31, 41, 38, 32 fantasy points in 4 games with them. I'm not totally against it, especially if they're going to extend D'Lo 30 minutes and Reeves 30 minutes. Both those guys are subpar defenders. Quickly could abuse both of them just based his name is what he is. He is a very fast, downhill, aggressive player who can also space the floor. So if I were to play either of them, Quickly, I think is the option for me.
Okay. Other guys in the mid tier down here that we haven't discussed already. Again, small slate, so there's not a lot of unfamiliar names. We do have Shaden Sharp at 57, Alec Burks at 54. Even Gary Trent's getting some minutes there. Off their bench at $4,400. Luke Kennard's 43. Any favorites of the group there for value?
Yeah, we talked about Sharp yesterday. Still coming off the bench, which is a little bit interesting. It's fine because if he's 35 minutes in regulation, you don't need him to start. That wouldn't hurt if Thibault missed this game as well, because then Sharp's minutes are just even more solidified, not having to lose out to any Matisse Thibault. But yeah, I think Shaden Sharp is a highly effective scorer. Don't love that, they're healthier and the peripheral stats have really taken a backseat. But if this is the price range that we're going to live at, there's going to be games where Shaden Sharp has a really high ceiling because he can score the basketball so well.
Yeah.
So he would probably be the guy for me. And then we just had a comment from the real Cameron Diaz, the actress, in our chat. I am interested in the perception of Luke Kennard because even I have played him since he's returned, but there's clearly some type of limitation on Luke Kennard. And if he's only playing 22, or let's say he's just capped, Memphis has a cap, 22 minutes, 24 minutes, whatever the cap is. I would rather just play the other Memphis value guys.
Sure.
Truthfully. I'm not. This isn't me saying that Luke Kennard's like a bad player. He's a 40% 3-point shooter this year. He's
We
faced
did get like ceiling minutes a little bit earlier this year, 27, 32, 27 out of him. So like maybe there's a build up now without Ja in that backcourt rotation.
Sure. And like that, I wouldn't say, I'm not saying it's not possible that there's like an expansion on minutes. I'm just saying he's played 5 games. They've kept him at 20 to 22. Maybe this is the game where he gets extended, but he missed, a month and a half. So
Yeah, I just think they had obviously had extra guys that go around, so they have to put those minutes somewhere. I think right. Ja's minutes have to go somewhere.
he didn't. I mean, Ja didn't play last game. He
Right.
played 22 minutes. He didn't close. He got Zaire Williams closed over him. Vince Williams closed over him.
It certainly could be Zaire Williams or Vince Williams. I agree. No doubt about it. Dez, I mean, Sharp played a whole bunch of minutes earlier this year. Like
He did.
even in blowouts, Chauncey Billups is playing his guys 35, 38 minutes. So if there's no minutes cap on him, I mean, he might just play. The only one that probably wouldn't would be Brogdon. Brogdon would be the guy that gets limited in those situations. So, any other guys down here for you?
To the cap, to the limits, minutes restriction point. They lifted all the restriction on everybody. Reith, Sharp, and Simons. And then you saw the 40 minutes. So they're, as long as Chauncey doesn't double back and say, oh, they probably shouldn't have done that, it doesn't seem like they're going to be capped at all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, unless you see something.
Yeah, small forward's good. Again, Alec Burks would be the only other shout out I'd give there at shooting guard. Small forward, you got LeBron James, $9,800. Again, no worries at all getting to him there. I get the total. Like somebody on Toronto is going to have a good game. I don't know who it's going to be. Again, Scotty Barnes hasn't really been on it. I know you mentioned Quickly. Maybe it is Quickly that has the good game here tonight. Siakam doesn't have the easiest of matchups. He's obviously been very good lately. But I don't really want to pay the price point for Scotty Barnes given the recent run of production out of him here. Seems like he's been taking the biggest hit really with the Quickly and Barrett now getting on the minutes that they've been getting there.
We know who's going to have the big. We know who's going to have the big.
Boucher, maybe.
I'm not gonna confirm nor deny, but maybe we.
Or Michael Porter Jr.'s brother.
Dude, what a find! I'm so happy Michael Porter Jr. has a brother in the NBA.
Bojan, I'm a big fan of tonight. I know that if he gets blown out, there could be some minute limitations here, but I think there's a chance that he leads the team in shot attempts.
I think that's I fully support that thought. Now, but I do think that there is something to be said though. If Bojan shoots them into this game, I mean, we're getting starter minutes out of everyone else. So Jaden Ivey, Killian Hayes, likely if Killian Hayes does start, Jalen Duren we'll talk about, and
well, we'll see. We'll see on the Killian Hayes thing again. I'm still not 100% sold they won't just go to Alec Burks if they need scoring, but that's just me just not liking Killian Hayes personally. Bojan, again, I like that 67. Not really in on OG at 63. Derrick Jones Jr. is kind of interesting at 51. Just the minutes that he's been playing here. No Lively. Grant questionable. Grant Williams questionable there. Josh Green, as you mentioned, has been playing some minutes here lately as well. Obviously, having Luka in impacts the rest of the crew. They run a 2-man game there with Kyrie and Luka, so kind of obviously cuts into some of that. Caleb Houston starting again, 36 minutes the other night, 39 fantasy points. He came in against Sacramento in this game, had 28 fantasy points there, so certainly can go Caleb Houston in this spot. Chuma Okeke also starting, played a whole bunch of minutes the other night as well.
And then you have the Memphis guys.
And we got the Memphis guys.
Now, they're both going to be extremely popular, Zaire and Vince. I think it's hard if Jaren Jackson sits. Is there any way we don't play them?
I was playing them anyways.
I know, but I'm just, of course.
But Killian, so.
But, I think, the Orlando guys are obviously 1/100th of their ownership, right? At similar prices. I would say there's a case to be made. You could pivot to them. in tournaments if Jaren Jackson plays, because if they're gonna run that same starting lineup they did the other day, they're not starting Zaire or Vince, right? And they just play Kennard. So I don't know. It's just a thought. Like, if Jaren Jackson sits, they have to basically start both.
Yeah.
Or they play David Roddy, you alluded to on the pod last night.
Right. Because we've seen him start Roddy this year. So,
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think both are very much in play. I understand that Detroit may start Isaiah Livers again. I don't think I would play Isaiah Livers.
And are you playing Isaiah Livers like instead of one of these Memphis players?
But he is $3,700 as well. And people are gonna maybe look at a $3,700 starter and be like, oh,
right.
Sad that they just our guy just Dunzo.
He'll get a random start, I'm sure, at some point and play 18 minutes. When he does, I just don't care.
Well, power forward. I have no problems if you want to really play any of these guys here. If you want to go Boncaro, you want to go Randle, Siakam, Towns, they're all fine plays tonight. Randle's the cover of today's stream and the cover of my playbook. What's there to say about Julius Randle right now? The man is just dominating. He's got Portland here. I like this matchup for Randle a little bit better than I like the one for Boncaro, so I went Randle for a little bit cheaper, $100 over on DraftKings. It's a couple $100 on FanDuel. But all of these guys here are really good plays, and if Triple J starts, he might even be among the top. So,
did you know that Julius Randle's in his 10th year in the NBA? Could not believe that when I heard that.
Yeah, dude, he was drafted by the Lakers so long ago.
I know. 10th year and he's getting this good. 10 years in, he's this good. It's crazy.
I remember last year we all thought he was gonna be traded because he was throwing iPads and things like that. So
yeah.
But yeah, Randle can't really argue against it. I mean, it's just a great spot for him there. Again, if y'all falls off, guys we've talked about already. I mean, Mo Wagner's got dual positional eligibility. I like him. We had a nice discussion, I think, this morning on what Orlando could do here. They already have Goga starting. We expected that. We expected Goga to be the starter here. But whether or not they go Mo Wagner over Goga during the middle of this game here on the Gobert, we'll see. But I think there's minutes to be had for Wagner regardless without Wendell Carter Jr. Here on the floor. Jabari Walker, if he ends up playing tonight, he's questionable. Could be interesting. We've seen the ceiling that he can have in that front court rotation. Naz Reid's been really good. We have the Orlando guys down here. So, and then of course, Boucher is power forward center eligible as well.
Oh yeah. Save the best for last, Johnny. Power forward's an interesting, a very interesting play because it wasn't only the Orlando discussion was Goga versus Mo Wagner, but also Mo Wagner versus Naz Reid, who are such similar plays for their team. Come off the bench, big guy that can light it up offensively, right? So if Wagner gets Karl Anthony Towns in foul trouble early, or if Boncaro gets Gobert in foul trouble earlier, you're gonna see Naz Reid extended in this game, and then do we even see them go back to Gobert if Wagner is, like you said, if Wagner is, do they just respond well, we need to go to Naz Reid because we can't, or do they just go big with Towns and just say screw it, or smaller with Towns and use McDaniels at the 4? There's a bunch of different scenarios. That's what makes it very intriguing for tournaments. Just cannot trust any of those guys in cash, but in tournaments, they're all super solid because there is a bunch of different scenarios that can play out. A lot of fun mixing and matching in that game. That should be a really fun basketball game in general. Jabari Walker, I wonder what role they use him in because we've seen him play both power forward and center this year. He's small ball center for sure. Do they want to mess with him at center and cut into Duop Reith's time because Duop Reith has been really good when he's been extended? Or do they want to just use him as the direct backup to Jeremy Grant? Who knows? They might need him to play center given no Moses Brown, Ibubaji might foul out in 8 minutes and
Right.
or 3 minutes in the backup role, and they don't have DeAndre Ayton. So yeah, Jabari Walker could be interesting. But look, like and we talked about it last night, and then we talked about it in the Discord this morning briefly. Like, I am fully aware what Anthony Davis can do to Chris Boucher and what Anthony Davis can do to the best defenders in basketball. Like, he is an elite player, and this year has been no different. Like, he has not disproven that. He has not like given us a reason to think like, oh, Anthony Davis on the down. Like, if anything, this is like Anthony Davis' best year in a long time. He's playing like every game, right? Like, this is not a Anthony Davis that we're.
I'm telling you, man, changing the play requirements to get those awards
Agreed.
has changed the NBA for the better.
100%. Could not agree more. It has been a great thing.
All those back-to-backs we've seen Kawhi Leonard play.
Dude, Kawhi Leonard, right? If that's like that was the poster boy. Like, that's the poster boy for I'm sitting on back-to-back, and now he's actually playing as he gets older. Like, that's a crazy thought. But it's just like, you look at Chris Boucher through the years, and you just know, like, this is a very good fantasy producer when he gets on the floor. And we know Jakob Poeltl's out. We also know in that trade with the Knicks, they traded Precious Achiuwa, who was their backup center. They called up Jonte Porter, brother of Michael, who's only played 3 games. He's max played 13 minutes this year in a game in the 3 games he's been in. Chris Boucher is going to have a role, whether it's starting or whether it's off the bench. And you were joking about like Thad Young last night, half joking. I know you're deep down, you do want to see Thad Young hit the floor and be out there, but it's just a scenario where you get a guy like Chris Boucher who's over a fantasy point per minute this year without Achiuwa and without Jakob Poeltl, and you just let it rip. Because look at, even in the game against Golden State, 16 minutes, 35 fantasy points. Like, that is what Chris Boucher can do regularly. But sometimes he only plays 4 minutes in a game, or sometimes he DMPs, and you're like, oh, he was just playing like 10 straight games of like 17 minutes, and now he DMP'd. So, like, I am fully in agreement with like your concerns with the foul trouble part of it, but I'm not gonna like really let that hinder a guy at 4,500 that, as we saw 2 games ago, play 30 minutes because Jakob Poeltl was in foul trouble.
Yep.
And nearly double-double. We know the blocks, we know the steals, all that. I'm gonna plug Chris Boucher in, and I'm just gonna let Jesus take the wheel, because
so in the playbook, I wrote him up in the core play section of value because obviously I agree with a lot of the points you've made. I also wrote that at this price point, he's probably the only one that has legitimate 10x potential, because he does. He could go for 45 fantasy points tonight if he stays out of foul trouble. And I understand, looking at the game logs, there really hasn't been that many games where he's gotten into like straight up foul trouble when he's been extended in games here. But obviously, like, LeBron James loves to attack the rim. Anthony Davis obviously plays in the post. Like, there are a lot more guys that will be challenging him now, like, in this spot. So I think if you're making multiple tournament lineups, of course you're playing him. I even think in a single entry lineup, you probably need him in your lineup because there's going to be a lot of rostership exposure to him here. It's a late night game. It's a high game total, all of those things. But I also would not be shocked if in 8 minutes he had 4 fouls. So, there's just that risk. I know a lot of people have been throwing Jonte Porter out there. Yeah, sure. Like, he's going to get some backup minutes. What he's capable-ish of doing.
He's not Michael. He's not shooting like Michael. We went over the stats last night on the G League stats. He's shooting less than 40% from the field.
Like you said, he's got the only one. He's really the only backup center. I threw out, like, could we actually legitimately see the ghost of Thad Young in this game? Like, it's possible. Like, he's on the roster. Like, he's out there. Could get some Thad Young minutes if these guys all get into foul trouble. I would bet my money that Jonte Porter's got a better chance of being in foul trouble sooner than Chris Boucher does. But there's a lot of questions to be had there. Moving on over to center. Where Anthony Davis exists, again, he's my number one play of the slate. I'm going to plug him in, cover the show this morning. I have him in all my lineup builds. Just don't see a scenario where he doesn't go for at least 60 today. Just given the matchup, given the pace of the game, given the game total and all that other stuff. So loving on Anthony Davis. It's no knock against Sabonis, who, as you mentioned a couple of games ago, at 76 and 60. Sure. No problem here. You want to go to Sabonis, save $100 like you can, but I'd rather go Davis in a matchup that feels a bit more competitive, high scoring. All good there. And then after that, there really wasn't a ton of centers. Hartenstein certainly makes some sense. Goga makes some sense. Duop Reith, if you want to go there, that's all fine and dandy as well. What about you, man?
I definitely like Sabonis in this spot. Another scenario where I don't find it hard to get to like a Davis Sabonis. Like if you wanted to, it's very easy. You play Memphis, you play Boucher, you play Killian Hayes. There's just obviously it's just inherent risk with this game in general, from top to bottom. Playing this game, we had someone that we were talking to that works with us at Fantasy Alarm and said there's going to be a lot of money lost and won on this game, depending on which side of the fence you take, because Kings just got smacked around. There's a lot of uncertainty with them. They haven't been that great lately. There's a lot of trade rumors swirling around their team in general. Detroit is abysmal, and they just got even more abysmal with a guy that scored 41 in a game and lost in a game that they lost. So he's their best player, not there. So, can Sabonis get us there in 30 minutes? He can. Like, he can triple-double in 30 minutes, and that it wouldn't be surprising. He can also, if this game stays competitive, he plays 40 minutes a night as long as he's out of foul trouble. So I like Sabonis second to Davis. Obviously, if you think this game can stay competitive, Jalen Duren receives a usage bump, and the fantasy points per minute aren't like fantastic. But 1.05 without Isaiah Stewart and Cade Cunningham off the floor, I think is pretty good mark. He does have the biggest usage bump without Cade and Isaiah Stewart. Jalen Duren's at almost 7%. So like that's notable. 24% usage rate for a big man. It's a small sample though. So like it's hard to really like quantify into how much it actually matters. And I prefer Hartenstein to Jalen Duren anyway. Duop Reith, as you mentioned, I think is if Jabari Walker sits, there's legitimate 35-minute upside for Duop Reith tonight. So both the centers in that Knicks Portland game is really interesting. Then the Memphis center rotation, we'll see. I mean, Tillman started that game, played 5 minutes, and then never played again. If there's no Jaren Jackson, you have to assume they just have to play Bismack or Tillman big minutes, but maybe they just like chop 24 and 24, and it's a complete nightmare scenario.
I would like Bismack, I think, over Tillman, honestly, if I had to pick one there. So.
Agreed. I agree.
All right, let's get a lineup build. AD for me, certainly going to be a plug. Do you play him at power forward or center?
It doesn't matter. Whatever. I mean, you could also play him in the util in case he were late scratched.
That's true. If he gets late scratch, what would you? I guess you'd play LeBron.
Yeah,
there.
LeBron. Because you could play Boucher at center too if you're uncomfortable there, and then play like Zaire Williams at power forward.
Yeah. Hartenstein.
Yeah, I like that too.
Zaire Williams, probably good with like Vince Williams too for me personally. Or 7K. What do we want to do? We liked Kyrie this morning, but obviously Luke is in now.
What's our temperature on Memphis in general? Kevin Porter will officially start.
Yeah.
Mike Brown. Like Smart and Bain, and I'm updating our ownership right now.
I'm good with going Bain here. That's fine by me. You can play them both. Well, we'd have 4 Memphis.
That's why. Like, are we? How comfortable with that are we? Like how comfortable with that game staying competitive are we?
There's our chalk plays. Chalk lineup.
Minus Simons. Is Simons getting ownership?
Well, I meant because it has Hayes and Boucher.
Oh, this is our chalk build. Yeah, this is definitely our chalk build. Simon's actually is good.
Cam, I like Paolo Banchero a lot tonight. It's just a tougher matchup for him. So I prefer Randle, but I mean, you can't sit here and argue what Banchero has been doing. He's home. I like the fact that he's home. Been putting the team on his back here. If they do decide to go in a lineup that includes Mo Wagner getting more minutes, and that happens to pull Rudy Gobert off the floor, definitely a better matchup for him. Towns is not a great rim protector. Naz Reid, not a great rim protector. So it could allow Banchero an easier path to the rim in these spots here. So certainly okay getting to Paolo Banchero here tonight.
Fully agree.
I mean, I just like Simons as a personal play.
I do too. No, that wasn't me talking you off Simons. I didn't see the lineup. I didn't see Killian Hayes yet, so I was just curious if he was getting ownership, which he actually kind of is. I'm doing the update right now, but at our last run, he had 15% ownership.
Yep. So, I mean, this is an example lineup for everybody out there tonight. Simons, Bain, Zaire Williams, Chris Boucher, Hartenstein, Killian Hayes, Vince Williams, and Bogdanovich here. I do like Shaedon Sharpe. Do I like him more than Ivy tonight? I don't know. It's obviously a better matchup for Ivy in terms of like game total and pace. Sharpe probably gets a bit more of a leash in minutes.
Yes, for sure. That is for sure, because we know how Monty handles the Detroit minutes. And by me saying we know is we don't know. We know that we aren't going to know how Monty's going to handle minutes in Detroit. So if that game blows out, Jaden Ivey doesn't stay on the floor. It's totally opposite with Chauncey Billups. Like if that game blows out, Chauncey Billups is going to still play Scoot 30. Chauncey Billups is doing it right, is he not? Like he's letting these dudes just play through whatever, right? In blowouts, like he's letting Scoot get time on the floor. He's letting Shaedon Sharpe get time on the floor. Like these are lottery picks. Like
but if Detroit does hang here, it's probably because like Ivy said, and Bojan and those guys. So
yeah, I mean it's a similar scenario, very different teams to OKC Washington last night, right? If you think Washington hangs in that game, OKC is an elite team to target because you have the best game environment, the total, the spread, or the total, the pace, whatever. Isn't it similar? Like if you think Detroit hangs in this game, then you want a lot of pieces from this game because it's Sacramento doesn't play defense. Detroit doesn't play defense. They're both very fast. Like it's the best game environment if it stays competitive, but you have to assess that. Like you have to make that decision. Do you think Detroit, no Cade Cunningham, possibly starting Killian Hayes, can keep De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis away from 30 actual in a game, right? Like that's each. So that's a assessment that you're gonna have to make. Because if you do, I think Ivy's probably the better play, right? But if you don't think it stays,
I mean, Ivy had some huge games like last week, so certainly can get you there if you think that's how it's going to go for sure.
And last year without Cade, I mean, the whole season without Cade, you were Jaden Ivey's number one.
I couldn't get why he was coming off the bench. Honestly, I still don't really understand the Detroit rotation. To be honest with you, I don't even think Bonnie Williams understands the Detroit rotation. At this point. All right, guys, that's show for today. We'll have a preview show in the morning. We'll see about the live stream again. The weather James is getting now is coming my way tomorrow. So let's have like 50, 60 mile an hour winds and like 4 inches of rain. So if I have power, I'll be here at 5 o'clock, take you through the slate. Otherwise, you can find us in the Discord, get us on Twitter. We'll have the preview show, I assume, for everybody here tomorrow morning. If you have any questions, find us then. For now, everybody, good luck with your lineups tonight, and we'll catch you all later.